So we're going to move on to the next section of Keep Going, the Art of Perseverance. So Jeremy asked his grandfather, "Why haven't I ever seen you afraid?" Old Hawk replied, "Because you haven't been looking carefully. I have been afraid many times in my life. Even now, there is a fear that I carry with me. I am afraid of losing your grandmother." Jeremy was astonished. He had never heard his grandfather admit any kind of fear, but he had said it so matter-of-factly. Jeremy said, "I hope I can admit my fears as calmly." "Many things come with age," Old Hawk assured him. "Your grandmother and I are old. We have been together most of our lives. If she dies first, I would be lost. We are all afraid of something, but that shouldn't stop us from going on every day. We should not always walk in fear of the shadow while we're in the light. It is certain we will not know when or how the difficult and bad times will come. But if we accept that they will come, then they are easier to face when they do. And always remember that anything that causes the shadow is smaller than the source of the light." And then Old Hawk said, "My father told me a story about shadows and sunshine when I was young. It's the story of two travelers. So there were two men who were journeying the length and breadth of a land bathed in sunshine. There was a woodcarver and a reader of the law. Their journey was pleasant. The road was wide, lots of inns where they could rest for the night, frequent connections on the roads with soldiers and constables, so they felt very safe. And therefore, though these things were blessings, the journey was without much excitement or challenge. But after several days, the road led into a tall, very dark and thick forest. The reader of the law stopped at the edge of the forest, and he just refused to go on. The woodcarver said, "We must go into the forest. It's part of the journey." "But I don't like the deep shadows," said the reader of the law. "I don't know what could be hiding there in the darkness. There could be thieves or fierce wild animals." "True," replied the woodcarver. The forest is where many things do dwell. There may be other travelers or dangerous and unknown things, and yet we won't know until we walk into these shadows. But there is something in there that is the most dangerous of all, that I know." The fearful reader of the law recoiled. "Whatever do you mean? What can be more dangerous than thieves or wild animals?" "Your fears," replied the woodcarver as he entered the forest. So he went through the shadows. More than once he hid from thieves. Another time he had to climb a tree to escape the reach of an angry bear. And before he reached the other side of the forest, he had to deviate from the trail to find water, and he became lost. But he managed to find the trail once again and emerged on the other side and found sunshine again. The reader of the law, meanwhile, remained at the edge of the forest, afraid to face the shadows. So what do you suppose happened to the reader of the law? Wondered Jeremy. Did he stay at the edge of the forest? "What do you think?" countered Old Hawk. "Well, I guess sometimes we create our own shadows, so maybe he never figured out that his fears made the forest darker than it really was. If so, he could not have learned what the woodcarver did." "And what did the woodcarver learn?" asked the old man. Jeremy thought for a moment. "Sometimes we have to endure the darkness and what it holds. If we do that, we appreciate the light. So the man who wouldn't go into the forest was trying to deny that shadows are a part of life," Jeremy decided. "True," said Old Hawk. "Furthermore, he gave into his fears and denied himself the experience of facing them. So he learned the wrong lesson, and we all do that from time to time. As for me, instead of worrying how I will face life without your grandmother, I will make the most of the time we have left together and thank the grandfather for the life he has given us. So go ahead and bend your knees. You can roll to the side, coming off your blanket. And then you can use your blanket to find yourself a comfortable seat. We're going to sit up and do a little alternate nostril breathing before we move on with some more movement today. So alternate nostril breath is a balancing breath. It balances the hemispheres of the brain and the two nervous systems, parasympathetic and sympathetic. It can be done by physically blocking one nostril and then breathing out and in through the other one, and then switching. So if you're going to do the physical practice, and I know many of you know this already, but just quick recap, you'll make a gentle fist with your right hand. You'll lift your baby finger and thumb, and then you'll bring them towards each other. And then the hand will be just right close to your face. And all you have to remember now is exhale, inhale, switch. So you would close your right nostril with the thumb. You'd exhale through the left side, then inhale through the left side, and then you switch. And then you close the left nostril with your pinky finger. Exhale, inhale, right. And that's one round. So doing each nostril for one breath is one round. Now, if you're ready, you can just move right into that practice, but I did want to mention that if you can't breathe comfortably through one or both nostrils, you can do this as a mental practice. In that case, you would simply bring your attention with your eyes closed to the eyebrow center, and then breathing any way that you can, you would exhale and picture the breath moving out, actually moving out through the left nostril. And then inhale, picture it moving back to the eyebrow center. Then you would exhale, picture it moving out the right. Inhale, picture moving it back to the eyebrow center. And so it's the same practice, but you're just visualizing the path of the breath as an inverted V rather than actually blocking the nostrils. So find a steady breath here where your inhale and your exhale are as even as you can make them. And long breaths, but not to the point of feeling like you're straining. And then once you start to get a rhythm, you can add a pause after each inhale and after each exhale. So not a breath hold at this point, but just a space that separates your inhale from your exhale. So once you take that full breath in and you pause, in that pause, you're just feeling the fullness of the breath. And then you begin your exhalation. When that is complete and you're pausing, you're feeling the emptiness. You're feeling maybe that desire to begin your next inhale. So we'll continue with this pranayama practice for another few minutes. So just continuing with your own breath rhythm, focusing on the movement of the breath, on the feeling of the breath, or visualizing the pathway of the breath. So do one more round of the pranayama. So one more time through your left nostril, then one more time through the right. And after you've finished with that inhale on the right side, you're ending your pranayama, but you can continue to sit quietly for a few more moments. with your eyes closed, or when you're ready, you can open them up. And also feel free to straighten out your legs at this point if you'd like to do that. So we're going to come up to standing now. And the first thing we're going to do is what I call the heel-toe arm lift. So it's for your lower legs and feet, and also for balance. So on your inhale, you'll come up to the balls of the feet and the toes. Okay, just pausing briefly, and then as you exhale, you're going to bring the feet down and stick your butt out so that your feet lift off the floor. So you're trying to get your feet off and be balancing on your heels. You can do anything you want with your arms here. So you're just kind of moving back and forth between these two shapes. And you're trying to get just maybe a moment where you're balanced in each one, and continuing to breathe while you're doing that. That's always a good idea. Yeah, so to really get balanced on your heels, the only way that will happen is if you shift your hips back and lean slightly forward. And you may want to counterbalance with your arms, although I've seen people take their arms back as well. When you come up onto the balls of the feet and the toes, try to keep both sides of that ball of your foot on the floor. So you may feel your feet wiggle a little bit, but try not to let them actually lift up. And it's absolutely fine if you walk backwards on your heels. That will happen sometimes, and it's because you're really making the effort to lift your feet up, which is a good thing. That's a harder one to balance on. And also, if you're, one of the things you can try, so if it's hard to do that, you can actually use something behind you like a wall. So if I do this here with the wall behind me, I don't want to be right up against it, but I want to be able to touch it. So I can do this, and I can touch the wall, and that way I can really lift my feet up. And then I can move from there. So I can really get that big flex and work the lower legs. So go ahead and do that a couple more times. All right, and then we're going to do another sequence to warm up. So I'm going to show it to you real quick. It's all shapes you're familiar with, but I just want you to see how we're going to put them together. So we're going to start in mountain pose, and then we'll inhale our arms up. We'll exhale, hinge from your hip joint, lower your hips like you're going to sit in a chair. Then you're going to fold yourself over your thighs here. So you're at 90 degrees with your legs, hips are low, folding down. From here, we're going to come into a chair pose. So I'm going to lift up, I'm going to hinge up from here. Your arms can go back here. They can be straight out parallel. They can also lift up. This is kind of the hardest one. So I would opt for one of the first two as you're warming up here. From here, then we're going to inhale all the way back up, and that's the sequence. So one more time. Inhale up, exhale, I hinge, I sit, and I fold over my legs. I inhale into chair pose, keeping the knees moving back, chest is lifted. After holding for a breath or so, I sweep my arms all the way up to Urdhva Hastasana again. So whenever you're ready, you can begin that sequence. Make sure your feet are hip width apart. So you're connecting movement to your breath, inhaling your arms up. As you exhale, you hinge first, then you lower your hips, hinge, sit, fold. Okay, with an inhale, come into chair and then hold chair for maybe one full breath or maybe two breaths, your choice. When you're ready to come up, use your inhale, stretch all the way up again. So let's do one more sequence. And when you finish your last sequence, you'll be in Urdhva Hastasana again. So you'll be in mountain pose with your arms lifted. Once you complete that, then use an exhalation to come into standing forward bend, Uttanasana. And then give yourself a few breaths in forward fold. And then with an inhale, you're going to step your right leg back for warrior one. So make sure you're near the front of your sticky mat before you step back. You want to be turned facing a narrow edge of your mat for this. So you want to turn, pick whatever place is going to be your front. You're going to step your right leg back. You can either keep your heel off the floor, or you're going to turn your right foot 45 degrees in. So it's not parallel to the back of your mat. It's turned in halfway between parallel and forward. Make sure your front foot is a little wider than your back foot, so you can heel toe it wider. Then bend the front knee and inhale your arms up. So warrior one, your torso is facing the direction of your front leg. So Bobby, turn towards your left leg. Yep, turn your whole body. Turn your right leg in more. So your back leg, lift your heel up and turn your back foot in more. You want it turned towards your front foot more. So your torso is facing the same direction of your front leg for warrior one. And your front knee is bent. Okay. So Bobby, your back foot is turned in, your front foot is this way, your torso is this way, your knee is bent, your arms are up. So you are not facing sideways, you're facing forward. That's it. You got it. Okay, now from here, take one more breath in and then exhale as you bring your hands to the floor and step back to plank pose. So give yourself a breath or two in plank pose, resisting with your arms, activating your hands, lifting your legs, pressing back through your heels and forward through the crown of your head. Now push off with your toes, shifting your shoulders forward and lower to the floor. You can put your knees down at any point, but try to put the pointy parts of your elbows straight back as you lower down. Now we're going to come into Cobra from here. So first Cobra of the day, even though we did do a heart opener, you can change the position of your hands. So you can move your hands wider apart, like even as wider than your sticky mat. You can also take your hands forward, and that will help you, I think, move a little deeper into a back bend. But you're using your arm muscles as well as your back muscles here. Make sure that you're lifting the back of your head up. Okay, Dan, lift the back of your head up. Okay, broaden your shoulders and then release back down again. Good, brief pause and then lift your shoulders as high as your elbows and press back up through plank right into downward dog. Okay, so we're going to move from dog to cobra 3 more times. Okay, and in each pose, you can take a few breaths here. So whenever you're ready, you'll inhale to plank, you'll lower down to the floor, change hand position if you wish, inhale to cobra. So with cobra, your pelvis is not off the floor, but you're trying to guide that back bend into the upper back. And then when you're ready, you're releasing down and pressing up through plank to downward facing dog. So you're going at your own pace. So you're not holding the poses for like minutes or anything, but maybe a couple of breaths, depending on how your breath rate is. And I think I said 4 times you're going to do that little sequence of cobra through plank to dog. So when you get to your 4th downward dog, just hang out there, breathing until I see that You're mostly up and downward dog. And now, once you're in your downward dog, you've had a couple of breaths there. The next movement will be to inhale your right foot forward. And this time, you'll come into warrior two. So now you're going to pivot on the back foot and turn it sideways. Now your back foot will be parallel to the back of your mat. Front and back heel lined up. Front knee will bend about 90 degrees. And you will be turning it, your torso will face the same direction as your back foot, toes are pointing. Okay, so that's the difference between warrior two and warrior one. Yeah, so Bob, you're going to face your fishes. Face your fishes. Face the wall. Yep, that way. And your arms are straight out from the sides of your shoulders. Okay, you're pushing through both legs, so really active legs. Take one more breath here in warrior two. And then you can rest your arms if you want. Just let them go to your sides. And you'll straighten your front leg now. So we're going to move into triangle pose next. Okay, so if you need to adjust your feet, your foundation, go ahead and do that. But the foot position is essentially the same. It's just how much distance between your feet you want for triangle pose. But your back foot's parallel. Your heels are lined up. Your front foot points straight. And then you'll take your arms straight out from the shoulders again. Lift your spine with a nice deep inhale. And then as you exhale, stretch out over your front legs. You're going to hinge over that thigh bone. And then bring your hand to wherever it can reach. So somewhere on your right lower leg maybe, or on a block. And then bring your top hand to your hip for a moment. And lift your top shoulder up and roll it back. And then notice your head and neck. And make sure that your spine is aligned, that your head is not coming forward or dropping down towards the floor. And then take that left arm straight up again. So triangle pose arms is actually ideally the same shape as when you're in warrior two, except your torso is turned more parallel to the floor. So that's the difference there. And your legs, of course, are straight. Now, after you take another breath in triangle pose, we'll move into side angle pose. So you can inhale your torso up, rest your arms for a moment. Same foot position, but again, you may want to adjust the distance between your 2 feet. Side angle pose, you're going to bend the front knee back to 90 degrees and then lean over the front leg and place your forearm, your right forearm on the thigh, or you can put your hand on a block next to your lower leg. Again, open up through your heart. Roll that top shoulder back. And then your top arm, instead of going straight up, if you can, it's going to be like an arrow shooting over your head, right above your ear. If that doesn't work for your shoulder, you can have your arms straight up or put your hand on your hip. So just honor that shoulder and make sure you're doing what it can do. Keep your breathing nice and steady. Okay, now from here, you're going to transition to a lunge. So just bringing both hands down on the floor and lift your back foot heel. So remember the foot position that we had for warrior one? You want that same foot position. So separate your feet. And then when you take your back heel onto the floor, that foot should be pointing halfway between the side wall and the front. So that the orientation, again, of your torso is straight ahead. And then come up to standing. So this is Parsvottanasana. So the legs are straight. The orientation is following the front leg. And then you're going to inhale. We're going to do this dynamically a few times first. So you're going to inhale up, exhale, hinge, stretch out as long as you can get. And then inhale, come back up again. And then exhale, stretch out as long as you can get. You're going to do that another time. And then that third time, once you come to here, you're going to either put your fingertips on the floor. You can put your hands on blocks if you have two blocks. You can also put your hands on your hips or just take them back to your sacrum. So we do the dynamic movement first to get the hamstrings warmed up a little bit more, and also the back. So Dan, you want your front leg straight. So you may need to just lift up higher and see where you can go. If your blocks might be a good help here, but you can also just put your hands on your hips and you're hinging from your hip joint. Yeah, just get as long as you can get here. Good. Now, inhale, come all the way up. And then you're going to step back to downward facing dog, just briefly. Give yourself a few breaths here. And now go ahead and step that right foot forward again for warrior one on the second side. So same foot position you were just in before, but we took a little break from it. Now front knee is bent. So the back foot is, again, it's turned in halfway between the back of the mat, parallel, and the front of the room. So front knee bent, torso's forward, both arms stretched straight up. And give yourself several breaths in warrior one. And then from here, you'll bring your arms, your hands down to the floor, lift your back heel to lunge, and then you're going to step back to plank. So just keep breathing as you're transitioning. Once you're in plank, you can hold plank for 1 or 2 breaths, your choice there. And then shift your shoulders forward as you begin to lower back down to the floor. And then we're going to do the cobra plank dog 4 times total. So you can go at your own pace here, but just make sure that you don't feel like you're rushing, that you have time to have good alignment. So especially not squishing your shoulders to your ears in any of these shapes. Making sure that for your cobra, you're drawing the back bend more into your upper back so you can change your hand position. And then when you're pressing up from the floor, make sure that you start pressing up from the floor with your shoulders up as high as your elbows. And so that's especially important if you have any shoulder issues. You don't want to have your shoulders down at the floor when you press up. Now, whenever you've gotten to your final downward facing dog pose, then you've had the chance to enjoy a few breaths in that pose. When you're ready, you'll use an inhale to step your left foot forward. Once you've got that leg up there, pivot on your back foot, take it to the floor for warrior 2 on the second side. So heels are now lined up. Back foot is parallel to the back of your mat. Front knee bends about 90 degrees. And then your spine is upright, centered, and both arms stretch straight out from your shoulders or in whatever position is best for your shoulders here. So Bobby, try taking your back arm a little bit forward. So experiment where with its position to find where it feels the best. Now after your next exhalation in Warrior Two, go ahead and drop your arms and inhale your front leg straight. So now adjusting whatever needs adjusting for triangle pose. So you may want to change how wide apart you are for this one. Maybe go wider, maybe go less, your choice. But the foot position is the same again for this pose and the next one. Back foot is parallel, heels lined up. And then when you're ready, your legs are straight for triangle pose. When you're ready, inhale your arms up, spine tall. Exhale as you start to hinge over that front leg. And you're trying to get the sides of your waist as long as you can get them. So you take your arm to where it reaches, whether it's somewhere on your front leg or it is on a block. Put it on something, okay? Take your other hand to your hip for a moment and then open up through your chest. So take your head back. So if your head comes forward, it's going to be very hard to open up through the chest. So you're using that top shoulder to roll back, but you have to make the head go along for the ride so that you have that feeling of opening up. And then once you've got that, arm can go straight up or anywhere else that's appropriate for this shoulder. You're pressing out through your legs here. And now from your triangle pose, when you're ready, use an inhale to lift up. Rest your arms again for a moment. And we'll move into side angle pose next. So second side for side angle. Foot position is the same. The distance between your foot you might want to modify. And you're going to bend your front knee to about 90 degrees and place your left forearm on top of the thigh. Okay, open up through your chest. Use that top arm, that top shoulder. Make your head go back, and then you can sweep your top arm over the ear or choose any other arm position that's appropriate for your shoulder on this side. Keep your breath nice and smooth and even. Press through both legs, especially that back straight leg. Take one more breath in. As you exhale, bring your hands to the floor and lift your back heel. So you're going to move through a lunge so that you can reposition your feet for Parsvottanasana, intense side stretch. So this is the same foot position as for Warrior One. Okay, so the orientation of your torso is forward in the same direction your front foot is pointing, but your legs will be straight. So you want to take your back foot, Mary, and step it wider than your front foot. Yeah. So don't have your heels line up for this pose. Have some space between them. I mean, not a foot, but maybe a couple inches, and you'll be more stable here. So you're going to come up to standing when you're ready. Okay, make sure that your legs are straight. So so put your back foot on the floor, Jack, instead of heel off the floor for this pose. For Warrior One, you can do it, but with this one, it would be too unsteady. So you're going to start with your legs straight and your legs pushing into the floor. So you want to make sure your back foot, Dan, is turned in. Yeah, so that your torso orientation is over the front leg. It's pointing in the same direction as your front foot. Legs are straight, so firm the muscles of your legs. Okay, when you're ready, inhale, both arms straight up. And then exhale, hinge from your hip joint and stretch out as long as you can over that front leg. So hinge forward. Good. Inhale, come back up. Stretch up nice and tall, and then exhale, hinge forward. Stretch out as long as you can. Stretch out the sides of your waist. One more time. You're going to inhale up. And then last time, you're going to stretch forward as long as you can. And now you're going to release your arms either to 2 blocks, to the floor if you can reach it without rounding your back or bending your front knee. Or you can have your hands on your hips or on your sacrum. Yeah, ideally it would be 2 blocks here to really maximize the length of your spine. But if you don't have ideal circumstances, that's when you just decide how best you can modify here. Okay, now from here, go ahead and bend your front knee, lift your back heel, and step all the way up to standing forward bend. So just step up to standing forward bend. You can get there any way you want to. So facing, Bobby, come into regular forward bend. Yeah, facing the skinny side of your mat. So let your feet widen, let your knees bend, get a nice release here with the standing forward bend. And then when you're ready, you can bring your hands to your hips. Squeeze your elbows in towards each other. Lift your head and your shoulders up and hinge all the way up to mountain pose again. Okay, so we're going to just pause for a moment here because the next pose we're going to do is revolved triangle pose. And it has some different ways that you can modify it. This is one where having something block-like will be a big help. So if you don't have a yoga block, but maybe you have some thick books or anything that you can, that's kind of looks like a block, but that you can lean into. So it can't be flimsy. It's got to be something you can actually press into. Okay, and I'm going to show you revolved triangle pose and some ways you can modify it. So first of all, the foundation for this pose is the same as Warrior One and Intense Side Stretcher Parsvottanasana. So you have your back foot is turned in. I'm going to show you here. So your back foot is turned halfway between parallel to the back of the mat and completely forward, so 45 degrees, okay? And your front foot is straight ahead, and it's a little wider than your back foot. Okay, so this is the stance, and your torso is oriented in the same direction as your front foot. Your block will come on the big toe side of your front foot. Okay, so you can put that into position if you want now, but before you come into the pose, just watch, please, for another moment. So to come into it, I'm going to have I have my left foot forward, my right foot back. I'm going to have my left hand resting on my sacrum. My right arm, so the opposite of whatever my forward leg is, comes up. And then I'm going to start like I'm doing Parsvottanasana. So I'm hinging forward. I'm trying to get as long as I can get here. And this is a balancing pose too. So you have to really plant your feet and squeeze your outer hips in. Then I'm going to take this hand down to the block. I'm going to pause here for a moment, make sure I'm steady in my legs and feet. And then I'm going to press down into the block and lift my top shoulder up, squeeze in my hips, and I'm going to be twisting towards my front leg. Okay, I'm going to try to stack my top shoulder over bottom shoulder and try to keep my hips pretty close to level. So to see it from the other angle, okay, so I would be going out like this. Hand is going to press down, this hand is checking out my sacrum. I'm going to lift this top shoulder up and roll it back. I'm squeezing my inner thighs together here. So I'm twisting in the direction of my front leg. Okay? You can also, This arm can come up in the air, but in my experience, especially when I started trying this pose, because of tightness in other parts of my body, as soon as I tried to get my arm up, I lost the twist. So, and I was still facing that way. So better to have your hand on your hip and really get the twist than to try to get that arm in the air. Least important part. Okay. So it looks like some of you are already moving into the pose. That's fine. If you haven't yet, go ahead. Strong action in the legs. You're twisting towards your front leg. Both legs are straight. That front leg is straight. So if you can't straighten your front leg, so Dan, pull the block back closer to your shoulder, and you can even make it higher. So if your front knee keeps trying to bend, come higher on your block, lift higher, because you want to press into that block and lift that top shoulder up. Now, whenever you've had enough fun, so Mary, you want to have your back foot wider. You want to step it out and turn it in more, your back foot. Now turn it in more. There you go. Yeah, so try the twist there and see if you're able to do a little bit more. There you go. Okay, when you're ready to come out of the pose, go ahead and lift up, turn your feet parallel and come into a wide-legged forward bend now. So you're just going to lift up, okay, counter pose with a wide-legged forward bend. So take your feet nice and wide apart. They're parallel to each other or slightly turned out. You're going to hinge from your hip joint. And once you get into the wide-legged forward bend, feel free to do some of the variations I think we've done before, but I'll remind you. So you can shift from side to side. I call that speed skater. So you would bend one knee, walk your torso and hands towards the bent knee, straighten the opposite leg, and then go to the other side and do that. And you can move, you know, kind of like windshield wipers. You can move a little faster or a little slower, depending on how it's feeling for you in the stretch. So that's one variation. Another variation is to shift your hips back. So instead of being directly above your legs and your heels, you shift back as far as you can without falling down, of course. And you're counterbalancing with your arms going forward. So when you shift your hips back, arms forward. So it's almost like your torso is in downward dog while your lower body is in wide-legged forward bend. But that, for me, gives a nice stretch in the low back. And then the other variation is to shift your hips forward, also walking your hands forward. And now you're getting probably a little more stretch in your hamstrings and maybe in your lower legs as well. And if there's any other movement that you discover you can do with your feet wide apart and hinged over that feels like a good idea, go for it. Because sometimes just moving around in a shape adds just a juiciness to it. You start to get into different areas of your body when you just add a little movement. Yes, a swaying your torso might be something. Or even, oh, we're going to do a twist here. I just thought it would be a nice twist we can do in a minute. So just take another few breaths, enjoying this shape in its many forms. And then when you're ready, when you've had a good amount of time here, you can just hinge all the way up. And if you want, you can go ahead and step your feet together. And I'm going to show you a twist variation. And here again, if you have a block handy, you can use it, because what we're going to try to do is have our spine as long as possible. So I'm in a nice wide stance here, and I'm going to come over, I'm hinging over with a long spine. I'm going to take my hand, my left hand onto a block. So you can have your hand flat. You can also come onto your knuckles. And then I'm going to start with this arm straight out here. And then I'm going to inhale as I stretch out through this arm, and exhale as I press down into the block and twist up. And then I'm going to inhale, looking down, torso down, and then exhale as I press down and come up into a twist. And then we'll switch to the other side. So we'll kind of do a dynamic twist there a couple of times. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and step your feet wide apart again. And wider, it tends to be better with this in my experience, but you discover your own experience here. So the first thing you want to do is just hinge forward and have your spine be really long. Hand is either on a block, ideally it's on a block. If you don't have a block, fingertips perhaps on the floor. And then you're going to have, let's say we'll keep one arm on the floor. So maybe your left arm on the floor. I think that's the one I had on the floor. So left arm is on the floor, on the block. And you're going to stretch your right arm straight forward. Okay, yeah. Now, as you exhale, sweep up into the twist. So as you twist, you're pushing down through the arm that's on the block or the floor and up with the other arm. And then inhale and take your arm forward again as your torso turns towards the floor. And then exhale and sweep the arm up into a twist. So using the pressure of the hand on the block. So do it 3 or 4 times, just a dynamic twist. And then you can switch to your second side. So Dan, try twisting by, take your arm forward again, Dan. And now sweep it up into the twist. I'm sorry, sweep it forward into the twist. So take it out in front and yeah, and then bring it up. Try doing it with your hand on your hip. So just see if you can get a little bit more mobility. Sorry. Keep the other hand on the block. Sometimes words are hard. Yes, so now twist with your left hand on the hip. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, take your head back when you twist. Back of the head back, good. Okay, so when you've done both sides, you can come back to center to any variation of the wide-legged forward bend again. That seems like a good idea. And when you are ready, you can come up to standing and go ahead and step your feet together. So we're going to move into a quad stretch, a standing quad stretch. So for this, you might need a belt if you know that either your knee doesn't bend a lot or your quads are on the tighter side. And this is also a time where you can use a piece of furniture or a wall to assist you while you're doing the quad stretch, because you're going to be standing on one leg. And although, yes, you could make it into a balancing pose, but I really want you to get the quad stretch at least first. So like for me, I can use, so just touching something, it can be a chair, a piece of furniture, like Mary and Jack, you can just touch your doors in the back of the room here. But basically, you're going to touch something, find your foot, or have a belt around it. And then there's 2 parts to the stretch. The first part is moving from your hip joint, moving your leg back until you feel a stretch. That first stretch will target the hip flexor and probably the top part of the quad. Okay, the second part of the stretch is moving the heel in closer to the buttock, and that will get more into the belly here. If you can't bend your heel in like that, if that just is not good for your knee, then have that belt. So you would have, I'm going to pretend I have a belt. So I'm not bending my knee very much, but what I can do is I can move it back like that until I get a nice stretch for my quad. So you don't have to bend your heel all the way in if that doesn't work for your knee joint. Yeah, so if you have to move out of my view to find something to touch, that's fine. But Dan, you're using your ceiling. I love it. Yeah, make sure that you're not lifting your thigh sideways. So you want your two thighs parallel. You're moving, you're moving the leg back, but not sideways. And then go ahead and switch sides whenever you're ready. The other thing about the quad stretch here is that you want to make sure that you keep your torso upright, that all the movement is coming from the hip joint where you're moving that thigh back or the heel into, yeah, but don't lean forward as you do it or it'll take you out of the stretch. The most important thing is that you feel you're getting the stretch. It's not how far your leg actually is moving. It's just that you feel that you're getting a stretch from through the whole front of the thigh up into the hip flexor. Okay, whenever you've finished that, then you can stop that. Okay, so we're going to move into balancing pose, dancer pose. I'm going to show you a few ways you can play around with this. So again, a piece of furniture, a wall can be helpful to do this, but if you don't have that handy, then you're just going to proceed with a little bit more caution. I'll show you both ways. So the first way is I have my fingers, I'm pretty far away from the wall, but I'm touching here. And I hold on to my foot, and then I'm going to come halfway between upright, where I am now, halfway to parallel. So I'm not going to be parallel, I'm just coming halfway. As I do that, my arm is going to lift up. So I'm going to come to about here, and then I lift this leg and kick it away from me. Okay, and then I can, if I'm steady enough, I can take my arm away. Okay, if you're doing it without a piece of furniture or something, you're going to start in the same way. So you're going to hold on to your foot and lift your arm up. And then the first thing you're going to do is start to slowly come about halfway to parallel. Get steady here. Make sure your arm is about where your ear is. And then you're lifting your leg and kicking it back. So you're not turning your hip out. You're trying to keep your hips squared. So give it a shot, but do it with a smile on your face. It's a yoga pose. Don't hurt yourself. Do what you can. But you do need to try to hinge forward. So you start up standing upright, but then you're trying to slowly hinge forward, not till you're parallel to the floor, but till you're about halfway. Make sure you're kicking the foot back, so you're not trying to pull the heel in. You're actually trying to push the heel away from you, which is what helps bring you into the back bend. Now, whenever you've had enough fun with your first side, go ahead and try your second side. So try not to take your legs so wide, Bobby. Yeah, keep your thighs parallel. Yes, and let your arm go up. The other arm, your left arm. Yes, crawl your left arm up the wall, Bobby. So it's kind of with your ear if you can. Now, whenever you have had enough fun with Natarajasana, dancer pose. Then we're going to come down to the floor and sit with our legs extended in front of us, so stick pose. Okay, so we're going to do some dynamic westward stretch, or Paschimottanasana. It's a seated forward bend, but dynamic because I want you to ease into it, and I want you to do it without rounding your back at all. So you can bend your knees a little bit if that's a good modification for you. If your legs are straight, that's fine too. You can also have your ankles a little more that way. So those are some different things you can do. But basically, you're bending from here, exhaling as you come into the forward bend, inhaling as you come back. So if you're tighter in here, I'm a tighter in the hamstring person. So I'm feeling something when I only go this far. So I like to get myself warmed up. But think of not down. Think of your heart as you're coming forward. Think of lifting up here, like your heart wants to leap over your toes. Let your hands remind you to lift up here. And above all else, do not let your head try to do the pose, okay? The head stays right here, and it's not moving except to ride the spine, okay? So go ahead and use your breath, and you're going to take about 10 or 12 breaths so that you're gradually deepening the stretch. Modify again. You can bend your knees a little bit. You can change the angle of your feet. If you flex your feet a lot, that's going to probably make more sensation in the lower body. Don't let your shoulders round. So I like to keep my hands on the floor next to me with a gentle pressure down, which reminds me to lift up and back. And then just be really conscious that your head is only moving with your torso. It is not jutting forward with your chin. It is not dropping down towards your thighs. The sensation should be in the backs of your legs, maybe your low back. Okay, so after warming up there, choose where you can go. Choose how far forward you can come and stay for about 5 breaths. So not 5 tortured breaths, but maybe some challenge, yes, but where you can breathe, you can still turn the corners of your mouth up, check on that. Somebody told me many, many years ago, it's not how far you go, it's how you go far. And that is my mantra when it comes to forward bends, because when I tried to go far, I mean, I couldn't, and it hurt, and I hated it. But when I paid attention to keeping my spine tall, my shoulders back, and going to where I could and still breathe and smile, I started to make friends with seated forward bends. They were a big challenge for me initially. Okay, once you've finished your 5 breaths, come back up again, and we'll move into a twist. So you'll want to take your legs together. That's right, if you haven't separated. Now bend your right knee and cross that foot over the left leg, putting the sole of the foot on the floor. Okay, so the bottom of the foot is down. You're going to keep your left hand on your right knee. So don't start twisting yet. Okay, and put your right hand on the floor by your right hip. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is feel everything that's touching the floor. So your right hand, the bottom of your right foot, your buttocks, and the extended left leg and heel. And then with an inhale, press that all into the floor and lift up. Get as tall as you can, like you're stretching through the crown of your head. Okay, on an exhale, lean a little bit back and begin to twist towards your bent knee. And I like to lean back to give space between my leg and my belly so I can twist as deeply as I can. But give yourself at least 3 breaths to see if you can twist a little deeper with each one. Keep everything touching the floor, pressing down into the floor to help support the lift of the spine. So you want to think of a twist not as just turning, but more like a spiral staircase. So with each turn, you're lifting taller, you're elevating through the spine. Try to keep your shoulders broad and even, so they're looking real good. And then after one more breath, you'll begin to release that twist. And then go ahead and stretch the right foot out straight and perhaps just wiggle waggle your legs a couple of times. Okay, and let's do the second side now. So now bending your left knee, cross that foot over. Left foot is on the floor, sole of the foot is down on the floor. Okay, you're going to use your right hand on the left knee, and your left hand will be on the floor by your left hip. Okay, so feel everything touching the floor, your fingertips, the buttocks, the sole of your left foot, and the entire length of your right leg to the heel. And then using your inhale, press them down as you rise up and get as long as you can through both sides of your waist and through your spine. Lean back, and on an exhalation, begin to twist. Let the twist start in the core of the pelvis. So again, your head will want to do the whole twist all by itself. Don't let it. In fact, start by just keeping your head in line with your breastbone, so it can only turn as far as you can twist with your torso. Give yourself at least 3 breaths to lift up with each inhale, to twist a little bit more with your exhale. When you feel that you are as twisted as you can get, you can draw that left thigh in a little closer to your chest or your belly if you want a little more opening in the hip. And then at this point, if you want, you can turn your head more if you want a little more stretch for your neck. When you're ready, go ahead and release the twist. Stretch your legs out, and again, you can just wiggle waggle a couple of times. So we're going to get ready for Shavasana now for final relaxation. But if there's a movement you want to do before that, either while you're sitting there, or a puppy or a child, or another westward stretch, or knees to your chest, or anything else, but then gather whatever props or clothing or whatever will help you to rest in a way that you feel supported, your body can release as deeply as possible. And once you're lying down, take note of your breath. But at this point now, you're not trying to shape the breath. You're just letting it find whatever rate and rhythm it wants. And we'll just move from the crown of the head to the feet, just checking in with the body. So maybe starting by shaking your head gently back and forth, releasing any tension around the neck. And then feel the weight of your head. Just let it be heavy. Soften your brow. Soften your eyes and allow your eyes just to float back into the skull. Try to relax the skin of your face. Separate your upper and lower teeth just slightly so your jaw is relaxed. And allow your tongue to rest at the bottom of the mouth. The lips are perhaps either just softly together or very slightly parted. So the whole head and face is heavy and relaxed. And then broaden through your shoulders and upper back and chest. Feeling all those muscles start to let go. Become aware of the weight of your arms as they rest on the floor. The arm muscles letting go of tension. Just becoming soft. And your hands and fingers are in whatever kind of position allows them to be as free of any tension as possible. Palms can be up or down. If they're up, fingers may be curling in towards the palms. And then moving from the upper part of the torso, just sliding your awareness down, noticing if there's any tension you can release around the belly, letting the belly be soft, the lower mid-back. Then moving to the pelvis and relaxing all the different parts, the different muscles around that area, buttocks and groins, hips. Then to the legs, and letting your legs just be heavy, supported perhaps by a blanket or towel, or just the floor. And then feet and toes also relaxing. Aware of the whole body. The whole body resting. And aware of the breath. Feel the breath moving softly, gently, in the belly or in the chest. And just for now, letting the mind relax, the body relax, the breath relax, the nervous system relax. So begin to transition, first just mentally, just knowing where you are, listening for sounds, and connecting to your breath, to your body, and the relaxation in your body. And then beginning to move and stretch. And then as you slowly make your way up to a seated position, and bring your hands to your heart and bow to your own unique self first. So we honor our individual self and we honor how we're connected to each other. Namaste.